I want to talk about following the rules in the church and how much work it was. And I think it's a little misleading when I say when I followed all the rules in the church, it was so much work and it was so intense and I felt like I was failing all the time. That was there, but I feel like doing the work in the church is part of all the rules. The rules in the church are so much more than that. Things like wearing your garments and going to the temple. Well, going to the temple once a week or once a month is one of those doing the work kind of goals, but like just how it feels in the temple, like being in the temple, presently aware and just being so full of light and love in the temple. There's no other place like it. It's really amazing. Yes, they do some weird stuff in the temple. It's just like, I don't know though. The temple's a good place. And the weird stuff, maybe you just don't understand it. I don't know. That's what I always thought. I thought it was great because it was like, I don't know. I'm always into weird stuff. But, okay, when I say it's orthodox, I mean, okay, when I hear people say, I followed all the rules, and then later they say, well, yeah, I was buying the size petite garments and like rolling up the sleeves so I could wear my fashion or whatever. I was like, oh, so because I just couldn't find fashion that was with the garments and stuff. And I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here. So when I say I follow the rules, I mean, I'm like annoyed that my garments ride up above my knee. I hate that. I don't know who designed this fabric. I don't know who is this garment designer. I make clothes, and if I was mass producing garments and I was wearing garments as well, and they're like just 2-3 inches above the knee. What? How you would be like, okay, guys, we need to make these 2 or 3 inches longer because after I wash them, they're like way above my knee. This is supposed to be at the knee. That's the letter of the law, at the knee. So I'm just so annoyed because I'm really a big rule follower. I love following rules. I learned so much when I follow rules.
In 2 miles, take exit 1 toward Dora Fort Smith.
So I just wanted them at the knee. So I started buying the mid-calf because I could get somewhat cottony. Now the problem with the mid-calf was they only come in a cotton poly blend. And I just wanted 100% cotton. I'm just a purist. I just really like natural fibers. I cannot handle that silky feel. So I wanted the 100% cotton. And it's a mindset thing. If I know there's plastic in my clothes, I feel so gross. So I just wanted it to be 100% cotton. But I was willing to make the sacrifice of the idea that it was gross wearing not polysorbate 80, not polyethylene, polyester. When I was wearing the polyester, I just ignored that and just really loved. I did the mid-calf, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, look how righteous I was. I was even going mid-calf. I would have gone ankle to wrist if that option was available. I loved that idea. That would have been amazing. If that was available in cotton, you could get the long, but they were all the Thermex stuff, just a thermal garment. I didn't want thermal. I want to wear these in summer. I'm not insane. Like, okay. So anyway, I wear the shorts now. And I just kind of ignore because I'm a little less orthodox.
In a half mile, take exit 1 toward Dora Fort Smith.
In the whole thing, because I'm a little upset about City Creek and that kind of thing. I'm a little upset. So I'm just like, I don't care. I'm just going to wear their dumb spandexy ones now. Like, they are objectively more comfortable and...
Take exit 1, then merge onto Dora Road.
...nicer looking than the cotton. I will say, the cotton looks all, like, baggy and weird. But I do, like, I still like the cotton feel. I wish I could just get cotton. Anyway, and also the cotton are always out of stock. I'm just going with... the standard, just the biker.
Continue on Dora Road for half a mile.
The road bike model, the spandexy road bike model. Okay, so I'm just going with that. It's comfortable, it looks nice, it's good, but who's seeing it anyway? Like, it doesn't matter how it looks. But, so, when I say I followed all the rules, those kind of rules, those were not a burden. And the kind of rules, like... the Jesus rules, love your enemy, that's not a burden, that's a challenge. Or have patience, more patience in suffering, more sorrow for sin. those kinds of things are not burdens. They are what lightens your burden. My yoke is
In
easy.
a quarter mile, your destination will be on the left.
My yoke is easy and my burden is light. The rules that lighten your burden are probably the rules we should be following. The rules like do your home teaching or go to the temple once a week. Those rules are there to help facilitate doing the things that lighten your burden, right? Like attending the temple definitely lightens your burden. But if done properly, I would say, and I hate to say that, like, oh, maybe you're just not doing it properly, because maybe you are and it's just not for you. I don't know how to navigate that. So that's not really what I'm saying. But really, the temples, I kind of am saying that. I mean, when you say you followed all the rules of the church, did you try to love your enemy, though? I feel like the only way I'm getting through this life is because I have a light burden, because I'm doing the church stuff. And I don't mean the church as in, what is it now? The new one, the Codge Cults. Not LDS anymore. It's just so long. Like, I hate the name change. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm like a machine gun. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's just like coming at you. A super long name. Tongue twister for you. What church do you belong to? Oh, I belong to a riddle and a tongue twister. Like, I belong to this church that the whole entire name is this tongue twister. This like Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I feel like I'm like machine gunning them with my words. I can't do it. I hate it. I do it. It's appropriate to do sometimes, even in my normal life, even in the before times. I would often say, oh yeah, it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It makes sense to say sometimes, but for every time, just say the Mormons or the LDS. What's wrong with that? Like, I get that there's something intensely wrong with that, because out of Utah, the church, and in Utah, the church is a little bit of a bad PR thing going on. Like, a lot of the people preach, a lot of the hard preachers preach fire and brimstone. They talk about the Mormons, like a lot. Not a lot, but more than other churches. A lot. If you're going to be hard preaching against another group of people, the amount that they hard preach against Mormons is significant. So people in their pulpits, people in their churches are hard warned against the Mormons. So if they're like, what, you move to a new area and they're like, hey, like, what church do you go to? Oh, I'm Mormon. They're like, oh, you're one of those. I've heard about you. But now that I belong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's like, oh, that's new. I haven't heard that before. It's just, to me, that's a little manipulative. I mean, you have your reputation for a reason. If your reputation is not as good, I mean, that's just how it went. We're not doing things to be seen of men anyway. Like, who cares? I mean, it kind of matters. We want all these members, but why? Just for the sake of having members? Like, are we not just trying to live like Jesus? Like, isn't that the whole dang point? What is the point of having members if what's the point of having members if the members aren't learning how to be like Jesus? And a lot of the programs, I can see how they make sense. They're like, go to the temple or read your scriptures every day. Okay, here's one. Here's a big one. Read your scriptures every day. Read your scriptures every day. Read your scriptures every day. Okay, so, but are the members striving to be like Jesus? Love your enemy is just such a major thing. It's like such a big one. And I don't know anybody who's doing it. Well, I probably know some people who are doing it, but I hear probably from every single person I know, how much, I don't know, they don't like somebody in their life. And it's like, okay, well, what are you doing to like that person? What are you doing to show that person love? Like, And I'm not just trying to tattle on everybody who I've heard and talked to and like, oh, nobody's doing the right thing. But it's just like the truth. Like, just admit it. And a lot of people don't like when I play devil's advocate. It's like, this person was such a horrible beast. And I'm like, okay, but like, could they be seen from, is there an angle you could view them from that would make them less of a monster? Is it possible we could do that? You know, that's showing love. It's like, yes, this person is logically doing contemptuous things, 100%. But like, okay, perfect. Once I realize I am deeply offended by a person, or they're just doing the wrong thing, they're just doing bad stuff, I feel a lot of contempt for them. I just don't like them for whatever reason. That's the point at which I'm like, oh, perfect, here's an enemy I can love. And then I just try to figure out something I could love about them, or like, I don't know if any of that came through. Usually I can find something about somebody. I can find something about everybody. I can usually find something about everybody. I'm not sure if I have ever met somebody that I couldn't find something to love about. I'm trying to think, like, if you met Jeffrey Dahmer and he wasn't a threat to you, I think you could find something to love about him. I'm just trying to think of like, that's like, it's crazy, it's creepy to think about. It's like, well, okay, what about Jeffrey Dahmer? What about, you know, people that do pretty terrible things? How do you love that kind of behavior? You don't love the behavior, but you love the person. So, I mean, you keep yourself safe. You can protect yourself. That's why we can discern if something is dangerous. I mean, you love your neighbor as yourself. You love your enemies. Do you love your enemies more than yourself? Greater love hath no man than this. Do you love your enemies as yourself, your neighbor? Your enemies you love, but do you have to love them like more than yourself? Do I have to just kind of like let everybody do everything to me? I mean, I think that's a common misconception. We're like, oh, love your enemies. Oh no, I can't do that in real life. It's because you're not understanding it properly. Did you ever think that when you read the scriptures and you're like, that was dumb? Or when you read, did you ever think that when you hear a Buddhist saying and you think that's dumb, did you ever think that maybe you're misunderstanding it? Did you think that? Because these people, some of these Buddhist sayings are something that they have been pondering on for years, maybe their entire lives. They're not just saying willy-nilly stuff. This is their real lived experience, and they only say it once. You know, we have these fancy recordings where we can go back and hear things over and over and over. But they just say it once. They don't repeat. So if you want to catch something they feel after a lifetime of pondering, and something that they feel is important to say at that exact moment, you were just blessed. And people started writing those sayings down because it's like, well, that was such profound wisdom, something I could ponder. I hear this saying of this person has graced me with some kind of wisdom, and I'm going to spend the next 10 years pondering it and realize how profound. And it's going to be like this unfolding of a beautiful flower. This 10 years of pondering. Maybe you'll ponder that saying for a lifetime, and maybe it will make a difference in your life. That's the kind of thing those are. And so when they write it down and then you get it, you might get a slightly slanted version. It's not going to make as much sense as the person they said it to. But it's still good. It's still their life musing, right? And so for someone to read it the first time they read it and say, that's dumb, well, I mean, what does that say about you? You know what it says about you is a mirror. It's what's coming right out your mouth. That's dumb. Well, you're dumb. So maybe think before you speak, you know? So, did you think that also the scriptures are like that? Also, we all know every time we read them, we get something new. That's not a new concept. That's known. Everybody knows that. Line upon line, precept upon precept. It's just, that's how life works. It's obvious. Okay. So, how do we gain understanding? Well, I feel like it's a combination of where your heart is and other things, but like where your heart is. That plays a lot into how you understand things. Just like what you care about and focus on, that's going to be kind of how you interpret the world around you. So if your heart is set on the things of this world, mammon, why you can't serve God in mammon? Because when your heart is set on the things of this world, it's not set on the things of God. Like, it's either or. And when the heart's set on the things of this world, you don't understand things in quite the same way as you might have if you were more pure in heart, set on the things of God, right? It's like the whole first section of Isaiah, the bells and crisping pin situation. Yeah, and so that's why following the rules makes sense, because you let go of the bells and crisping pins. I just don't care about fashion anymore because I belong to the Church of Jesus Christ, the Latter-day Saints. I know who I am and I know God's plan, and I'll follow him in faith. Just thinking about other things now, just thinking about other things. And Isaiah specifically said, don't worry about the bells and the crisping pins and like mincing as you go. And it's like, it's not the acts though. Like you can just like shut down all those acts and still have the mindset of the bells and crispy pins mincing as you go. To be seen of men is what it is. You're doing things to be seen of men. And there's a lot of things that branch out from that. But following all the rules of the church is one of those. We just had a lesson of it since we're all correlated. We all just had a lesson on the exact same thing. Now, I don't know if correlation is such a bad thing though, because it's kind of nice. We all can get references now, right? When I say, you don't want to get hung up on the branches, like the roots are what are important, right? We need to nourish the roots. Like there's a lot of branchy stuff. Like I feel like all the doing stuff, like all the church things, it's like don't have more than 2 piercings and wear your garments and go to the temple every week and all like the doings, like do your ministering. It's like ministering, the concept of ministering, the base, like you go back to the gospel principle of that, love your neighbor as yourself, right? You can probably think of like, there's probably an infinite number of ways to do that. We choose one. We've settled on one way and we've said, this is the way we're going to do that. And if you don't do it this way, then there's something wrong with you. And that must be why God's not blessing you in your life. But really the reason God's not blessing you in your life is because you're doing things to be seen of men, even if you have a pure heart wanting to do the right thing. It's still, you're doing men's work instead of God's work, but it is God's work too. Like, I mean, it's just kind of, you just kind of have to judge where you're at. Are you called to do that? Well, then it's God's work, right? Like, what are you called to do? And who calls you? I think we just have it really clear. Somebody told me once, oh my gosh, it was so good that God gives us imperfect leadership so we can learn to rely on him. Oh, that was so good, so profound. It's so true. Rely not on the arm of flesh. Even our own current leader said, you cannot survive spiritually in the last days unless you have your own testimony. And like funny, somewhat ironic. Like all the rules, okay, the name change, but that's where I'm like, what are we doing? Because like that seems like a little bit more intentional than maybe the unintentional original thing that a lot of the early leaders maybe did. Even like the piercing thing, I feel like was just kind of like an innocent, like we're just really trying to actually improve things. Like this actually, I think would improve everybody's life. I don't know. It could have been to be seen of men. That's, I know, are we doing things to be seen of men? Because if so, then you're not really understanding the gospel. And maybe that's why a lot of things are kind of falling by the wayside and just kind of, it seems, are we lost? You know, do we lose the way? Can we admit it? You know? Pull over, Henry. We need to ask for directions. Let's stop and ask for help. No, I have too much pride. I'm unteachable. Depends on the situation. Depends on how the response is. But I think an open discussion about these hard concepts, an open discussion with all the members, like transparency. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. That's why Jesus... I don't know what to say about that. That's why Jesus what? That's why Jesus said that. It's just a truth. It's a law of consciousness, the same as the law of the physical world, like the law of gravity, right? That's a certain immutable law. And I'm sure there's some specific cases, maybe with like quantum physics, where the laws as we know them are so like wacky and like maybe it's not what we thought. But there are laws that govern the universe, like, right? As loose as they are, like that's just how it works. God sat back in the first day and saw that it was good. It was working. It was obeying. Like, it's like, yep, it's doing what it should. The molecules are interacting how I expected them to. That's cool. So the molecules obey, and it's like even the rocks know his name. Like they all obey these laws, but it's consciousness. Because even if you are an atheist, you have to see that consciousness exists. Like we're not, even if we are just rocks looking at other rocks, like the fact that we're looking at all is interesting. Like why would that be an existing thing that happens at all ever in the universe? Like why is that? What is that? How is that? What is that? What is that thing that I am? That no thing that I'm looking in at but can't quite seem to see. But yet here I am. Seems to be just space to accept all the things happening around me and the external reality, right? There's the internal, but maybe the internal is the external. It's all just one thing. It's the external experiencing the external. I just think as an atheist, I mean, you know that consciousness exists. Anyway, if you look into wave-particle duality, you can see how consciousness interacts with the physical world. Like, that's weird. Oh, so it's a real scientifically proven thing. Consciousness exists. Surprise. So your consciousness exists. What is it? It's weird. It's interesting. Think on it. It's like, that's the cool stuff. Some of the mysteries of God, you know, why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we seeing mysteries of God and stuff at church? I wonder though. The church, to be seen of men, the bells and the crisping pins, walking and mincing as they go. It's just, you're supposed to be doing things in your closet. Yea, verily, the person who does all their alms before men, yea, they have their reward. Mr. or was it Mrs. 2000 wheelchairs sometime, and it was like, yeah, but like your numbers, and like I was born in 1984 and I'm pretty dang old, and that's like, a lot of years to be, doing this, like, I don't know. Oh, ye fair ones often comes to my mind. I lament when I think about the situation. Oh, ye fair ones. Oh, ye fair ones. But it's never too late. The workers arriving at the last hour get the fair wages, and anyone who complains, Jesus is like, shut up. Like, you got your wage. Stop complaining. I think that's just a way to be like, come on. But we all know, as workers in the vineyard, working on loving and forgiving and loving our enemies and all that, that's like a major part of our day. So for you to come in to the vineyard where it is calm and peaceful, it's not like the work of men. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. Take care. None of us have been here the whole time except him.